Shout out to the sponsors of the podcast, MonarchToken.io, the complete crypto solution. Monarch Wallet is now available for Android, iOS, and desktop devices today. Do you want to learn how to mine crypto? Well, all you have to do is visit cryptomining.tools for profitable crypto mining information today. The Divi Project, that is diviproject.org, your one-click solution for staking and masternodes. Earn cryptocurrency using social media platforms like Somee.social, SOMEE.social, New Era Social Media. Get paid to write reviews, like reviews, comment on reviews. Visit bravocoin.com and get paid to review. Available for Android and iOS devices. bravocoin.com. Shout. Hey, how goes it? Ken Bozak here to talk about Bitcoin and Bitcoin accessories. And today I'm here with my bro Grant Blaisdell of coinfirm.com, and we're going to be talking about the major hurdles of mass adoption. Grant, how goes it?
Good, buddy. Thanks for having me, man.
Hey, appreciate you coming on. And dude, I know it's late where you're at. Where are you calling in from, Grant?
I am in Coin Firm's kind of operational headquarters in Warsaw, Poland. So it's 11 p.m. right now, but it's all right. You know, crypto space is uniquely global, so you kind of got to do what you got to do around it.
Yeah, crypto never sleeps, man. Never sleeps. So I appreciate you calling in so late over there from Poland, and that's like my half of my motherland right there. I'm Polish and Irish, so all the Polish I know, I think, is Dame Buzi.
Yeah, so give me kisses or give me a kiss.
And obviously, I know the added on Dame Buzi Moi Dumpa Kurva.
Well, you kind of messed that up, but
See, I know I would.
I get what you're trying to say.
My grandma would be pissed. All right, let me see if I can do this one. But this is one I learned in high school and I never got to use. Pieszmia. Pieszmia? Pieszmia.
Yeah.
It's like fuck me or something like that.
Yeah, piepsh. Piepsh. There's like a P at the end, which actually the term piepsh by itself means pepper as well. If you just said piepsh, it means
That's hilarious, bro. That's awesome.
my mother's from Warsaw originally, so I speak Polish. So Coin Firm's London headquartered, but most of our tech, analytics, and kind of operational stuff is in Warsaw, and most of our founders are from here originally.
Well, shout out to my bros over at coinfirm.com. Let's dive into that a little bit. But first, how about you, Grant? Like, who are you? What were you doing before Bitcoin? How did that lead you to fall down the rabbit hole and what you're doing now in the industry?
Uh, I originally have kind of a music digital media background. My first kind of startup project was when I was about 19. I'm a California native. I was in California at the time, in LA. It was focused on digital media, mobile distribution, with integrated branding, advertising, kind of things that became standard recently. This was in 2007-ish. iPhone really wasn't out yet. We were programming actually around Palm at the time.
Oh, cool.
If anybody remembers
I
Palm.
definitely do, man. I want one. I was one of those, futurist youngins who always had like, I was a young kid with a beeper. Everybody was like, aren't people gonna think you're a drug dealer? I'm like way too young for that impression, but I always wanted the new tech.
Well, the Palm Treos were tanks. I dropped
Yeah.
one off the car once, and you put it back together. It was the first, touch screen type of thing. Either way, that's kind of my first foray formally into tech. I got to do some pre-dev on a project that eventually became Hulu. It was called differently then. So all this stuff kind of came together to me creating my own models around those systems. And then you kind of have your aha moments sometimes around this tech, around blockchain.
Yep.
So I kind of, Bitcoin was already out by then, and I had known of it, and then it kind of fit together into the aspect of less so about, this what I view in some cases as a utopian idea of, knocking out, these foundational incumbents in these industries and all that, but more of providing a system that eliminates the requirement of them providing, assurance and trust of data. So if I'm if I'm putting up digital content into the sphere. Because, like, labels and all these sort of entities that have intellectual property or digital intellectual property, they have their like rights management systems. But the moment it gets thrown like onto the actual market, it gets commercialized on YouTube,
Yep.
Spotify, etc. It's cut off, right? So there's no really like transparency and 100% trust in that. So I viewed that as kind of this foundational system. I don't view this tech or cryptocurrency itself for the most part in any sort of major user interface way. I view it more as a back end foundational system, operational system kind of for value and trust and transparency of it.
Yeah, that's where
Um,
we can utilize a lot of the technology at hand to replace a lot of those middlemen or like the middle wear in between.
yeah, it's going to eliminate a bunch of those things, but it'll also create its own, and I'm already seeing that from kind of my perspective, being in the space for a long time and how it's matured till now. Um, you're already seeing, custodians, right? Like,
Lots of them.
right. So you can't also ignore the fact of human nature, and like the average person is not going to want to handle, private key and those security elements, and they get drunk one day or something and lose their stuff.
Right.
Like,
People still
the,
have the deed to their house and the title to their car in a bank security box. Like, people still have a custodian for those titles, those
right,
keys.
right. I don't. Once again, I'm not extremely utopian about all this. I try to be realistic and not fall into um, kind of the holes and the problems that other people, whether it's technological kind of ideological viewpoints or political ideological viewpoints, whatever it may be, not to fall too much into that sphere. And CoinFirm's kind of it's a representation of that. When we first came out, a lot of people, it's one of the only times I've ever seen hardcore kind of crypto, certain ideologically driven segment of the industry and traditional financial conservative types agree on something, about 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago. And even still, I get stuff like this, which is AML or anti money laundering, those sort of analytics and structures for crypto is or solutions are not necessary. One side says so because they're saying um, that crypto was built to free us from these sort of things and not have them. And then the other side was saying crypto was created to skirt and go around these
Yep.
things,
Yeah, to
right?
obfuscate.
Which they're both wrong for different reasons.
And right for different reasons.
Uh, for a small segment, but right, like, trust me, you don't want the portrayal to an average person, business person, decision maker in any sort of sense of, yeah, this is to get around these. That's not a good way forward towards this mass adoption topic we're talking with, right? I think a lot of stuff happened at the beginning, or not technically the beginning, but early stages of any sort of adoption, where it's like we're here to kill the banks, and then you talk to the banks and like, let's collaborate. It's like you
Yes.
can't have it both ways.
You're right.
So, and it's not that the banks are going to win. It's just naturally for it to grow into such a big structure, it's going to have to fall under certain guidelines and things. And actually, one thing I've learned, I'm not like a libertarian in how most people see libertarian, but I'm very much for individual freedom. I don't like big government aspects, federal government aspects especially. But you start seeing that actually businesses will require this as a natural progression of a market themselves, protection of themselves, because you don't want things coming back at you later.
Right.
Just like we've seen with hacks and that money landing and going through exchanges.
Well, now exchanges have kind of colluded to make sure that if any of those types of coins enter the exchange, they're actually forwarded to a law firm or some sort that actually returns the money.
Do you think that's wrong?
I do. Actually, I think that's very anti-Bitcoin for exchanges to do this. What if but hear me out. Here's why I think it's wrong. If I
Ideologically, I get it.
Right.
Ideologically, you don't have to. You don't have to. But then on the flip side, you think about the person who has whose money that is
But what
actually
about
rich.
the person who got that money, right? If I do a goods or service transaction with somebody who pays me with the Bitcoin that they have received from an exchange hack, and then I go and
But see,
deposit that
people
Bitcoin to a custodial like Coinbase, and they steal my money and return it back to the original person who was stolen from at the exchange, that's theft at the second degree.
although that's a good point, it's not that black and white, and
Right,
that's
you're right. And that's it's not supposed to be gray. That's I mean, gray is where we're living.
but no, my point is on a technical level, it's not that black and white. Like people have this idea of that like we shoot a particular coin with a paintball, right? And like then that's marked and it's just running.
Right.
I'm not the data scientist of the company, so I don't want to go too deep into it and also step outside of my boundaries, let's say. But the point is that there's a much deeper analysis as far as relationship, how far away these things are, what's the behavioral patterns of how all this is happening and where it happens, right? So it's not that simple, and we've been in the situation where whether it's been a company operating in the space, like there's so many companies or entities that we had some sort of interaction with or who I saw their communication years ago that eventually have become collaborative or open in communication with us because it it starts showing an overall picture, and otherwise you have this what's going to develop into a dark gray hidden market, and that mass adoption thing just won't happen. It just won't happen.
I don't think mass adoption will happen, period, at the expectations of a lot of maximalists' portrayal of it. Like, at the sense that crypto or Bitcoin mass adoption would equal the replacement of the petrodollar. What nations use to purchase oil on a massive level, the U.S. government's petrodollar. If I don't believe that Bitcoin will replace that, and that is what mass adoption is the government forcing people to accept it as a currency. I don't think that that will happen. I think it'll be like more of an underground thing.
Uh, Once again, like Bitcoin to me is one thing, and Bitcoin has not, from a development sense, generally fulfilled its capability for any true day-to-day usage or scalability and that sort of
It's
stuff.
not beating Visa anytime soon.
Well, and here's my thing. Wild idea. Maybe let's leave that horse alone in the sense that this is, the best ever store of value in what we view the digital world. I think it's superior than gold in many ways as well.
Exactly.
Um, so let it serve that purpose, and that's actually, that's very legitimate. You can't yell about how horrible the U.S. dollar is, da 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 da, and then just ignore like certain thing about store value around Bitcoin, and maybe that's its value, and it should let it be that it's its value. Like you can still send $100 million relatively faster and more securely than ever in the history of mankind directly, right? That's still a possibility. So maybe that should just be left to be the way it is. And to be honest, what I think you're going to see is majority of crypto serve no purpose.
A lot of them. I mean, 99.9%
Yeah.
outside of nostalgic personal opinion or perception. Like, I
Well,
like Dash because it's blue. Blue's my favorite color, so I use Dash. Like, that is how things start to actually pick up.
well, here's the thing. Like, I can make certain arguments for things. I've known Dash for a long time. We were the first company ever to do. Still the only company really who's able to do analysis and anti-money laundering type stuff for Dash. You can check on the internet. We did this years ago when it was still really unpopular, and I give credit to Dash for that. That actually shows their long-term vision and everything. Dash has a certain application. Like if if Ripple actually has a certain application, it's what I was talking about, which is systematic. It's not about Dash, it's not about XRP, right? It's about the system that those are moving on and how
Right.
that, right? The speculative value and all that stuff to me is to be honest secondary. It fuels a certain thing. It exists within that realm, and great. And there's certain function for utility tokens, right? There are certain utility tokens that work in the proper sense of utility. We built something like that for, because we have what we know of as probably the largest structured like blockchain database in the world, right? Because we have the largest blockchain coverage. We cover XRP, all ERC20s, Dash, Bitcoin. I'll keep going, right? Um, so we have this massive database, but how we approach long term how the crypto space is like what people have to understand is fundamentally this tech is built on transparency. Like you can't yell about transparency of banks and transparency of the Federal Reserve, have this tech, and then when it comes to transparency of yourself and everything, be like,
Right.
like, you can't have it both ways, right? That's the thing I run into around the crypto space on both ends. Like you can't have it both ways. Um, so what we built is a system we allow anybody in the world to submit data around it. There is loads of fraud, scams. Also, we want people to be able to show who are trusted parties. I'm a company, this is a company, we've transacted with them for a long time. These people are okay. Here's their address, their main wallet address, their evidence that they're good. And please take this into consideration if they're a good party, right? Or companies register their own. So they say, hey, we're transparent, this is how we're working, etc. Or here's a hack that happened. Submit that data. If we go through it fast enough in our data science team, we'll implement it the platform, and Binance, who's using our platform, will see that things that just came in from a scam or hack are coming on, and they can freeze them for further stuff, right? So, it builds that circle where it's the ecosystem protecting itself. And recently we came out with reclaimcrypto.com. We're doing this in collaboration with some traditional entities who know how to play and succeed in the end game of this, which is kind of the first end-to-end public solution. Anybody can come on the website, put in a claim, of going in, finding where it went, and if possible, pulling it out through legal means, right? So that adds like to the back end of this whole kind of structure of the AML platform, people putting in data, and then if let's say something has gone through, it's beyond us, then you have this reclaim crypto, and that's like
Yeah,
what
and
we
a
do.
lot of people don't feel like they have any recourse for anything when this happens to them. They just kind of sit on the sidelines and wait for the exchanges to do all the work for them, hoping somebody's going to help them when they could help themselves. Like you said, they could go to coinfirm.com and reclaim their lost coins.
Yeah, for that specific solution, they can go directly to reclaimcrypto.com. When it comes to on the new page that's coming out within the next couple weeks or month, there'll be both solutions available on the same page. But coinfirm.com is mainly focused around our analytics and anti-money laundering stuff.
Yeah, I saw a lot of AML information on the landing page.
Yeah. Well, that's we were the first ones I think that really came out with an AML sort of focus. We saw that as being kind of this bridge.
Well, individuals don't worry about this, but institutions do, and that is what might be holding back some of the mass adoption, right? It's
Any company now officially in this space that wants to act legitimately pretty much is going to have to fall under some sort of solution set or some sort of guidelines like that. There's a few regulations that are being enforced.
Have you seen what happened with the Google and Apple store where they're basically forcing Coinbase to remove the Web 3.0 browsers? And that kind of made me have like that tinfoil hat theory of how long until every operating system that runs a wallet makes the wallet company mandatory KYC their customers. So, for the AML requirements. And,
Uh, I don't think they can put that through the browser. I don't think legally the browser can enforce that. If you have
Because
a situation like bat where the browser itself is rewarding, right? The transfer of value and the custody of value or holding of value isn't in the browser, isn't on legally on the browser entity's side, right? They're just, technically from what I can tell from a regulatory end, that wouldn't be a requirement. And I can generally tell you, like unless it absolutely serves their own interest to enforce something, uh, companies in this space or any space won't do something unless they got a kind of gun to their head, let's say.
well, we saw what
Um,
happened with local bitcoins, right? They used to be one of the best options for peer to peer for liquidity for crypto. But now, because of the mandatory KYC, we've seen less and less people be able to utilize local bitcoins, and it just makes me think of what could happen to other services that we use like this.
yeah, but you know what Craigslist is, right?
Yeah.
Listen, we're humans. If people really want to do things, they figure out how to do things. Mass adoption isn't going to come through people trading Bitcoin like that. Mass adoption is more likely, to me, how I view it, within X amount of years, hundreds and hundreds of millions of people using crypto but not really knowing it. You will have your investor store of value minded type of people, which just like with stocks, God, I see who was talking about this. Yang was talking about this the other day, and he does make some good points sometimes. Uh, I forgot where it's some tiny small percentage of the U.S. population actually holds stock, right?
Okay.
It's it's the same sort of idea, right? That you're going to have the small percentage of the population. By small, it could be 10%, right? I'm not talking about one that is invested in some sort of real manner into this space as far as holding value, cryptocurrency investment, trade, da da da, that sort of thing. And majority of people are just using it as a system without knowing that they're using it. Whether just like people have no idea how the banking system works really, and they're using it. They have no idea what Swift is. The average person doesn't know
But
what
they
Swift
know that they're using US dollar. Will they be using BTC, or will they still when we see this mass adoption pinnacle, is it still US dollar with
will still be
Bitcoin tech?
denominated in dollar.
Yeah, I think so too. I think stable coins are probably the first leg of the ramp to be kind of stepped on when it comes to mass adoption.
Stablecoin railways, right? I mean, that's what's going to be. So what you're going to see, just like I brought that music system example in. People on one end are going to be paying in fiat. It's digitally, let's say, just transferred into numerical form in a certain sense onto a stablecoin system. That can be tied to a smart contract, for example, that's executing some sort of automated aspect of it. Transfers the value. It can transfer a token at the same time along with that value that can represent, like I brought in IP or the music, right? And one goes this way, the other one goes this way, and you have a set, and it pops out fiat on the other end, right into their Bank of America account or whatever
Right.
it is. Like that's how I see that popping off. That's why people can hate on things like Ripple, people can hate on Hyperledger, etc. But I've seen it with myself with how I view constructing like actual economic solutions in the thing, where like I'm not going to get certain. It's like trying to get governments to onboard, their workings onto the Bitcoin blockchain. People had ideas of doing this. It's like it doesn't work well. The tech isn't mature enough for that yet. Also, like ETH and Ethereum has its own issues as well.
Right, right. And it's going to take a while for that. I mean, we've just started to see the US government, I mentioned this before on the podcast, is like they just started using digital documentation instead of physical historical documentation where like everything was printed on paper, for years. Up until like 2018, 2019, they started putting things on hard drives.
And it's because the system wasn't built yet and designed yet to handle that for them. And it's going to take a while to see this technology built in a way that can be utilized by governments to kind of replace or even evolve what they're currently doing.
Fundamental change either takes time or blood.
Blood is what we're waiting for. I think we're going to have to wait for boomers to age out, and then we'll see this tech really take off.
I'm uh,
I don't think we'll see mass adoption during the boomer generation's reign of power. I really don't.
what are boomers at now? Technically, they're like
Uh, like 40, right? I think
no,
50.
no. That's like Gen X.
Oh, okay.
Like Fred Durst.
True that. Maybe a little older, but that's what I mean. We only got a couple. Like,
Nah, dude. Boomers are Vietnam era, so they're 60s, 70s. They're man, it's
and you got to think they have the majority of the wealth of the world's wealth. That generation.
okay, but look at it this way. Look at it this way. I hate this compare. It's almost cliche at this point. Um, of where are we in comparison to the internet and adoption phase? Right, what year is this?
It's like AOL discs at Kmart era. Everybody has that AOL disc for the intranet. That's kind of how I feel like where we're at with
You
dial
just said
up.
everybody. It's not there yet. You just said everybody.
Yeah, but with the way that Coinbase and all these like Coinbase wasn't around when I like was starting to look into Bitcoin. It was so hard to get into it. I kind of like waited, and then Coinbase came around with like their AOL intranet, which is like Bitcoin intranet. If you think about the way Coinbase operates, it's like an intranet of Bitcoin, and how
Okay.
easy it made it to on ramp. Like Bitcoin hit $20,000 a coin before it was really convenient or easily accessible to buy and sell, and now it's even easier to buy and sell with Cash App. You can even use Cash App now with Bitcoin. It's start.
Well, in Europe, and it's I don't know about cash because I'm in Europe most of the time, right? I'm an American, but I'm in Europe most of the time. I don't have Cash App. I think I have Venmo right now, just for some stuff like that. But in Europe mainly, a lot of that kind of sort of app is Revolut.
Revolut
Um,
is amazing.
yeah, Revolut's really good, and you can buy Bitcoin, Ethereum, Bitcoin Cash, maybe some other stuff they've added. Uh, but from what I understand, technically, it's not. You're not actually buying Bitcoin. You're buying a derivative
Right.
that you can only exchange within the app into fiat. You can't send out. I'm guessing that's the same with Cash App. You can't send out.
They just changed it about 3 months ago that you can now. So you can actually send or withdraw Bitcoin from Cash App. So I could send you Bitcoin from my Cash App. It's more of a withdrawal than it is a send. So it looks like I'm sending it to myself, I guess, from their like ledger standpoint. I don't know if that's like a AML reason or why, but it does not say send. It says withdrawal, and I can withdraw Bitcoin. But basically, it's the same function.
So you withdraw it and it sends Bitcoin. It ends up as Bitcoin on the other person's thing.
Yes, sir. Does not have to be a
My
Cash
guess is,
App
my guess
Bitcoin
is,
address.
my guess is that these are all still derivatives, but I
Right,
don't.
me too. Until the time of actual send.
I don't. I don't know.
Well, let's
Uh,
talk about like what derivatives could mean to crypto because a lot of people don't understand that this is like basically paper gold to paper Bitcoin, and we're seeing what could happen is more than 21 million Bitcoin being owned because more than 21 million Bitcoin were sold, but it's not true Bitcoin. Or where we could
oh,
end up
that was
owning the same
interesting.
fucking Bitcoin where they
I was
fractionally reserve Bitcoin.
I was gonna go into the way of how derivatives are created of things that the public don't have access to in a way. So, like, there's two companies I know of in the space that are right now creating "quote unquote" an STO for SpaceX stock. It's a derivative, though, in the sense of because it's you can't publicly trade this, we are going to create a derivative related to
Interesting. I was actually
So
talking to somebody about investing in SpaceX recently, and we were talking about Alphabet because it's technically one of the only ways to get a stake in SpaceX is through Google Inc. Alphabet. But that's interesting, though. There's a potential derivative of SpaceX. That would be pretty. That would be a unique way for people to get that couldn't get involved to get involved. But is that true investment? Or is that potentially something that we could see as like a scam?
I think time will tell.
Yeah, like Schrodinger's cat, man.
Well, listen,
Everything's a
that
scam until
they're
it's
doing
not.
it with they're doing it without SpaceX's,
Mm-hmm.
interaction. They're doing it most definitely if they were to launch it tomorrow. They're doing it in a gray area.
Right.
We did CoinFirm did an analysis. We've done two of them. It's called KYE report, Know Your Exchange report, where we analyze majority of the exchange market. And because exchanges also are tied to this sort of activity. So we'll analyze what we've seen is that entities that have the most kind of regulatory compliance are the least likely to crash, lose user funds, or not pay funds that are lost or pay funds out, etc. Generally, from all market signals we can see, the less compliant an exchange is, the more you are at risk as a user. Because that's why people can hate KYC until you get screwed. And you have the guy standing outside with Mt.
Yeah.
Gox on Bitcoin because they have no way to identify.
So isn't it fair to say that these exchanges should have to submit their KYE to people that they are requiring to submit KYC? Like what information is it that an exchange should give me?
You just made the argument for regulation
Ooh,
of the industry.
I don't know how I feel about that. I'm gonna have to reflect on it later.
You see how it flips? Like all this stuff is like I'm really into, like I said, I'm not a government enforcement type of guy, and if you get to know me more personally, you'll understand that even better. It's just like I've learned through kind of study, but also my experience being a co-founder of this company that that stuff spins around. All that stuff comes back around. And if you want to make these intellectual ideological arguments, that can get flipped right back around. I can throw out the kiddie porn thing.
Yep, yeah, exactly.
Right. The only reason the biggest network in online of kiddie porn got shut down was because a competitor of ours actually went and found that. And that's what people have to understand. Like unless you take really insane measures to try to hide it, and even then it's really, really hard. Everything is visible. It's there for analysis. It's public. You want publicity, transparency, you got it. All right. So it's what type of future do we really want to have? What type of future, if you care about the actual values and adoption of this technology and of crypto, then like I said, things only happen through great change only happens through kind of certain approaches, and there's generally two of them, and one of them is something that I don't think anybody wants, and I don't think is going to happen in the crypto space. So we'll see. I've been invested in this space for half a decade and over pretty much at this point. So it's not that people who create companies such as ours don't believe in the overall picture. We actually view ourselves as one of the main bridges so that overall picture is fulfilled. But within reality, the banks didn't fall, the regulators didn't fall, that didn't happen. And like I told you, naturally we as people are going to do things like those custodians happen,
Mm-hmm.
right? And all those.
Well, the concept of bank will never go away. People will always want to bank with their assets, or with their, whatever it may be, the title to their house. They're not going to want to be a custodian themselves and take that risk. People always want to obfuscate that out, and there'll always be ways to monetize that and profit from people being too afraid to hold on to their own keys.
No, there's good reasons for people not only to not trust themselves, just be afraid. I mean, there's so many cases and loads of controversy and millions of dollars just never recoverable because of that. People
Well, the
literally
same is said for gold too. How many people have tried to transfer gold from one nation to another nation and the ship sank?
it happens, but the system for a long time when it comes to gold has insurance plans. See, these are the things that are just
Gold
developed.
has natural insurance though, and I think so does Bitcoin, with its scarcity, its supply issuance, and the demand for the utility of the asset. Insurance is built into it by nature. It doesn't actually need third party
Oh,
human involvement for insurance of this.
yeah, but come on, you make any sort of, anything that's physical. Like here's the thing, there is a difference between that, and you're going to start seeing this. So, for example, there's companies that will, for example, I believe one bought out Fortress, I think they're called, bought out Mount Gox's, let's say, Bitcoin, right? Like they bought out the case in that sort of sense. You're going to start seeing certain structures come in that provide, insurance, assurance, these sort of systems around it. I'm done. It's just getting there. Like, there's no denying what's going to happen. If I have something of value, you're going to start seeing a whole system being built around it, right? But I don't.
Will these be companies, or will these be protocol layers? Because like a lot of what you're saying, it could be done by corporations and companies, but also could just be replaced by a protocol.
Okay, I'm gonna throw something else at you. Dexes. What's a dex?
A decentralized exchange, similar to what Bitcoin is as a currency. Decentralized currency, DEX, decentralized exchange.
How many real dexes are there?
One.
Okay, how many advertise themselves as dexes?
All of them.
A lot. But there's someone there to talk to, right? It's not running. It's not a protocol. You don't call Bitcoin, right? Just like people say, hey, there's all, what's the email to Bitcoin? Like, what's the, who's the CEO of Bitcoin? So it's not with dexes. So one thing we're doing with our whole AMLT network, that's a network where, you submit data. And actually, I didn't even mention it for our network members. So exchanges are network members, CoinGecko is a network member. Loads of these sort of different entities in the ecosystem are network members. When they provide data that's valid, that's legitimate, we implement, they get our tokens back. They use those AMLT tokens to pay for our services at discount, get certain data sets that are unique, right?
That's an interesting utility token concept.
Well, that's what I meant. Like,
that's like proof of data, right? Like that's how it would be minted. Proof of data.
Yo, you're really sharp. We'll talk privately about what you just said. That's pretty funny. Either way,
sorry,
different topic for a different time. So around dexes, we're like, okay, so we've always thought about this. It's just the industry's hadn't matured really to even this argument yet, which is, okay, so if we're gonna have this autonomous, decentralized sort of ecosystem of exchange and trade, but AML is going to be a requirement, and if you're the guy who set this up, which I'm sorry, there's always it's like the Bitcoin example itself is different than setting up an exchange, technologically even, and traceability and all these sort of things. Like what they did is very different. But you're going to set up a DEX, and how are you going to handle AML on the DEX? How are you going to handle the filter on a DEX? So our whole thing is just providing an oracle and a whole automated system that just pings that back and forth. It's a tiny micro transaction fee to get through the filter, and get filter runs.
Now, who
Right.
audits the auditor? Who audits the oracle?
It's
Who
not an
filters the
auditor, and
filter?
the smart contract itself.
Right,
Right.
exactly. Because a
So
lot of people don't realize this when smart contracts are created and utilized. There's auditors that audit this specifically.
yeah, I know. I personally know the best smart contract auditors. So this is in a let's say beta kind of POC phase right now. This whole aspect. So once again, it's about the long-term vision, and people said we're crazy when we first came out. We're still here and thriving and growing. So our next our next stuff is likely on the same path. Just like the reclaim crypto thing, as you said, there's very few options for people to do anything um, in that space, and we hope to, scalability is hard as well when it comes to that particular type of thing because it does take some sort of time.
Has CoinFirm talked to any of the victims of the ransomware error that happened about a year ago in crypto and tried to help them get the Bitcoin back that they have spent to unencrypt or decrypt their files that were locked by the ransomware?
I can't comment on that. I don't know. We have 450 cases we're analyzing right now.
Okay.
Over
Because that's
450.
just one that I thought was a different case, similar to like being hacked or scanned by an exchange or whatever the case may be. But if you're being extorted for money, there's a way to get that money back that you paid because of extortion, right?
Yeah,
Like
if
with
yeah, of
ransomware.
course. You provide us the exchange of the person extorting you, right? They provide a address you have to send stuff to. We see where the trail goes, right? But people also have to understand, like resource wise, etc. Unless we can kind of collectivize this into a bigger account, let's say, like that's why you have class action lawsuits, etc. Like you kind of collectivize it. But if somebody just gives us this scammer and we can only tell that this case is like half a Bitcoin that this guy still, it's really hard for us to justify not even our part really, which our part is very technological. We've
But isn't
people
that
got
a
to understand.
momentary thought though, right? Because what if Bitcoin goes to 100,000 or $1 million of Bitcoin? That half a Bitcoin that somebody lost today may actually now be worth your company's while to try to reclaim.
I'm just speaking on the realities of now, and
Right.
but you know I've seen this a lot, like in the token space, because we have a token and we were the first people to analyze Ethereum, so we serviced like 70 ICOs during the ICO boom for that stuff, and it's
How many ICO tokens were sent to custodial Ethereum addresses and lost forever? You know how many people I've had email me saying they use their Coinbase Ethereum address to receive their ICO tokens and they cannot get their ICO tokens from the exchange?
uh you shouldn't. So we had a token sale. During our token sale, everything was tied to a smart contract. If you sent us funds from an exchange, would reject it.
Interesting. So there would have been ways for ICOs to prevent that from happening to investors.
I one 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 of the many reasons I feel I can be critical of the crypto space and the kind of speculative from a token project space is we did everything to the highest transparency, highest regulatory standard, true utility standard, tied to a solution that's working in the space, build the solutions ahead of time according to roadmap, do monthly roadmaps, execute it. Like the space isn't about recognition of actual value yet.
Right. It's all speculation.
It's not even real speculation. It's it's certain mechanisms that are being used, certain measures across exchanges being used. It's it's still at that point, and I find as someone who's under the hood a lot, I find a hard time hearing out the arguments for this more of this Wild Westy style approach towards it, because there's just like, double digits percentage of trading volume is garbage.
Well, while we're in the Wild West, we'll never meet mass adoption. I can definitely agree on that.
Right.
The Wild West will never be mass adopted. We need
Right.
it to be regulated. We need it to be at least governed by some form of governance, whether it be government regulation or trusted self governance from inside.
Well, we used to make the argument for, this ship sailed in a little sense, which is the self-regulation aspect.
It did. You're right. We Mount Gox had that was the moment of self regulation's moment, and I think they dropped the ball.
Oh, we had years after that.
You
We had
think?
years after that. We had years after that to like I told you, from what I've seen, entities generally don't change until they have the gun to their head. Very few, take a progressive step again towards this and view it in the long term.
Yeah, if it isn't a life or death choice, they're not going to take a step towards progression because comfortability is profitability.
Well, I mean, it's logically speaking, it's not in an exchanges. Let's say an exchange. It's not in their. It's not in their long term. It's not in their benefit or incentive to not accept this money.
Right.
Period. It's not. So, I'm not hypercritical of that, and I did understand that these regulatory aspects are kind of a natural progression of things that also at a certain point certain businesses would put on themselves.
Right. Well,
So,
even in the era we're at now, and the where we're at right now in this space, Coinbase a couple years ago when Bitcoin Cash first came out, they were basically under investigation for insider trading, and they did their own self investigation and said, no, we didn't do any insider trading. We're okay, and the world was just okay with that. And I don't know like how I feel about it. If and again, I don't want it to be Wild West, but I do. Do I want regulators to come in? Do I want the third parties to audit Coinbase? Do I want them to do an investigation outside of Coinbase's own investigation? And that's again a political or ideological knife that I'm standing on, both sides of it. I don't want
right.
it to be me that has to abide by these things, but I want the exchanges to as well. And that's the Wild West era we're still in right now.
Uh, well, yeah, but you're painting the picture, which is you can't have it both ways.
Right, right. No, and in which way do we want it isn't the way that mass adoption will go. Like if you're a true crypto, not a Bitcoiner maximalist or whatever. Like if you're against fiat, you're anti-bank, and you want the banks to fail. You want the banks to die. But in order for mass adoption to occur, they can't die. We need the banks to work with us, not against us.
Even if the banks were to die totally, some sort of structure would.
It would replace it. Yeah,
Right.
immediately. Like Celsius
Oh,
Network is sort of like a bank for crypto, and they're a custodial service. You can take a loan, you can earn interest. They're basically bank on the blockchain. It's no better or worse. It's just what banking is 2.0.
Crypto's cool in the sense of uh, all right. So I told you how I entered the space, which is digital media, music stuff. So like I do music myself. Like I'm a rapper, technically hip hop artist, whatever you want to call it. So I've even done at shows as just for the hell of it, um, as a kind of use case in a way. Is I'll give away Bitcoin to fans.
Oh wow, how do you do that? What's the process like?
Um,
Do they
Through
get?
social media, I'll announce certain things that they have to do. Those that fulfill it in some sort of way, they'll get reward. I'll either meet them after the show, or I'll do it through through
Oh
social
shit! So you
media.
basically do like community bounties.
I mean,
Like you put out a bounty for a reward. Like
they don't have to like literally do anything. I mean, like they'll put up an Instagram thing, or I'll throw out a bunch of stickers, and some will have a B, a Bitcoin B on the back, and the one with the Bitcoin B comes up to me at the end of after the show. Um, Different things, but it's to show an example of recreating the direct relationship and transfer of value between user and creator, right? So like I opened up for Puya earlier in the year and did that with a bunch of fans. Did that with out of
See, I'm waiting for artists to do this with their own tokens. I actually had a company on the podcast recently called Tune Trade, and it's the Coin Boys, the guys who made the epic music video with John McAfee and Buy the Fucking Dip music video and all that. They came out with this really amazing concept, Tune Trade, for artists or any content creator to basically tokenize themselves. So, like when you're at your own concert, you could make maybe 100 of your own tokens, and your utility is those tokens are redeemable for a ticket at any one of your future shows. And
yeah.
now
So
you can give away tokenized tickets.
they're not well. I view it more as so. The whole thing that I'm doing is for a bigger thing. It's a system. It's the same system that I built for digital media. Um, Personally, I'm applying it to tickets. I'm applying it to even space stuff. That's why I was interested in that space aspect. This is once again, my foray into blockchain originally. But you're not the argument isn't to kill out Spotify, YouTube, etc., those entities. The argument for a creator, at least, like if you're really about that, like if Kanye West did this, I think it would be a really cool use case because he has that sort of capability.
I think crypto and Kanye don't go together, and I don't think he ever will.
Why?
Remember Kanye coin with the gay fish glasses? As you know, he ended up suing the creators of.
Oh,
I'm just saying, Kanye has a bad taste for crypto because of that.
yeah, but he's, from what I've seen, he's generally ahead of the curve on things. But either way, whoever insert your artist that think has that pull and mind state. That when he releases whatever the next Jesus album is supposed to be, it's another one. Either way, when he releases that, say, listen, you got your Spotify's, your whatever, but come interact directly onto my digital properties. I will provide you this in return for doing this and this and this sort of token. And for this sort of token, you can come back and you can redeem it for these sort of experiences.
100% agree with you. I actually will extend that thought process and say, and I say this quite a bit, maybe you'll agree. Soon, Netflix will be paying me to watch Netflix. I will not be paying Netflix to watch Netflix. Similar to because so many platforms will exist, Netflix will want to gamify me going to their platform to consume content on their network by giving me tokens that I can then redeem for Netflix services. So basically, it would be a free service. If I watch Netflix, I get rewarded with Netflix tokens that can be redeemed for Netflix services. Similar to going to your platform as a musician.
Your system right there would only work. Same thing with, whether it's Spotify. Your system would work under an advertising model.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what Basic Attention Token and the Brave browser is basically kicking off and getting away from the data mining and more towards the privacy sector of data monetization.
The biggest opportunity around this space is actually in social media because you're actually the creator of the content that they monetize. So it provides a much bigger kind of argument and spectrum on that. Mm-hmm. There used to be a social network called TSU. Just like some entities in the crypto space that try to do stuff around digital media, it unfortunately created, kind of a pyramid model. But what their thing was, and they don't exist anymore, was we generate revenue off your content technically and your identity. So we're giving you 90% of everything that's generated. They just take the whole pie, take 90%, spread it out. So those models are going to be coming. DLive did that thing with PewDiePie. I don't know how that's continuing, if that's continuing well or not.
I go to DLive occasionally because right now we're live on DLive right now, and I'll go and there's people that have hundreds of thousands of people watching. Again, probably bought it because even Twitch streamers bought their streams to make it look like they have more viewers. but it still seems like DLive is actually getting a good influx of new viewers. So
Well, Steam was really kind of the first one that really built anything that I could call considerable or real around that. And they've done a lot of recent development. I've talked to I know some people
yeah,
there.
their Steam creator tokens the media tokens or whatever is really cool concept.
Yeah, but as with anything around crypto, everything's about usability.
Yo, my buddy just said that PewDiePie is on Library also. That is really interesting. I'm gonna have to check that out.
So you see, it takes certain people like that pulling it. Um,
Yeah,
but at the
it
same
becomes like a
time,
trendsetter, right? We need these influencers to set the trends. That's how it all starts. It becomes like a fashion statement more so than a revolutionary tool.
well, the issue with digital media on a major scale, so D Live is collective mass, right? So even though Ye can pull X percentage of those people into that sort of experience, that's not collective mass as a whole, and it would take artists after artists after artists implementing what all different systems, all different tokens. Are they all interoperable then onto digital media platforms that have collective mass, right? Like these things they're going to have to figure out, and that's why I think it's a lot harder than people understand.
True. It's gonna be a lot harder than I think even the most enthusiastic, you know, people with hindsight have in mind. You know, we're disrupting a lot. It's not just finance. You know, we're talking entertainment, medical. I mean, dude, everything is going to be disrupted by this technology. And when you look at disruptive technologies and their implementations, it's a long pursuit of mass adoption. Look at the amount of people that are still unbanked at the rate banks are mass adopted, and yet the amount of people that don't have the purvey to utilize the software or the technology that banks offer.
Well, it's kind of an ending thing to that. You know, as a part of our long-term vision, as a part of that whole kind of reporting system and everything like that, one of our long-term things is
Thanks for the sub, Leela.
in the traditional space. This whole AML and this regulatory compliance thing is more checking off boxes. In AML, it's like 1-2% effective. We take it into the 90 percentiles of effectiveness. So what we're trying to really do at the end of the day is take, like, I like the Nigerian market a lot. Like we helped open up the first blockchain lab in Nigeria, and what we really like and our long-term kind of goal is instead of this system kind of blanketing people even regionally, like regions are high risk, nations are high risk, etc., is there we're able to hone down onto individuals, right, and how they're acting as entities and provide them the capability of an entity in a
Mm-hmm.
high risk area to actually have access to the global financial system and not be cut off.
Right.
So the
That's an interesting concept though, to think of independent corporations, an independent LLC. How many people in this day and age are becoming entrepreneurs and being their own businesses, but still having those hurdles of legacy finance and again, I know you say it isn't so much of like a one way or the other, but like getting around the regulators or working with them. But if you're a small business, an independent LLC, and you're having issues using the financial industries that exist for corporations, and you see this technology exists and you can utilize it to get around those hurdles, that will be adopted by the mom and pop shops or the independent companies that you're talking about.
well, the ICO thing had its beauty in the sense of you had some guy somewhere, another guy somewhere putting money into this guy's idea, right? And there's I know some great entrepreneurs and minds in Nigeria, for example, that because they are where they are, they're treated as high risk. If I'm doing a transaction with somebody and like I know like they're in certain regions, I'm like, I probably won't do this. So if you were to able to have, that sort of trusted system based off, not just analyze data off what's available, but what the ecosystem says itself about it with evidence, not like Yelp,
Right.
five stars, 1 star, the macaroni sucked, the pizza was great, but actual evidence based stuff. Um, then we can have that transparency and we can do this financial inclusion sort of stuff, because one of the major roadblocks to that is the fact that these are high risk regions. And
Mm-hmm. What
come
if these
on,
high risk regions decided to do their own ICO that was legitimized? What if we
like the
saw
petrodollar,
Bro,
it's
exactly.
not legitimized.
No, but it's
Everything
not though.
else,
Right, right, exactly. But something along those lines. Now, if the citizens could utilize the petrodollar in Venezuela, I would buy
uh,
petrodollars so I could add value to their market
no,
caps.
this is how I would do it. This is how I see it. I'm a Nigerian that owns this much land. That land is entitled and registered in a government blockchain database. Da, 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 da.
Ubiquity. That's my boy.
I don't know what you just said.
Ubiquity can do what you were just talking about. That's all.
Well, but there's been bunches of projects that are kind of trying to attack with this sort of land
Yep.
deed titles aspect. But let's say there's that, and then I on this property want to build a cafe. I'm going to globally crowdfund the building of this cafe as a business, as an investment.
Yeah, but then how would you monetize that token rather than it just being the ICO gift certificate that it would be? Would it be a utility
Uh,
token or is it just that gift certificate?
the shares.
Oh, shares. Okay, so you tokenize the shares.
Right, or you can tie it. You can tie it to it can be a derivative, right? So you can tie it, let's say, to the profit margins of the
Yeah, that I
offering.
think that would probably be more sustainable and long term would be the derivatives option.
But either way, that's the long term potential capability of this tech. But I don't see a lot of it on an enterprise or kind of industrial
Not
level
yet.
happen.
It will take one. You'll see
Well, I don't I
one.
don't see it happening through public blockchains.
Hmm. Interesting. Why so?
Uh,
Like you mean more of an independent, right? Blockchain.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to see like enterprises are going to build their own ecosystems, right? The real estate guy who is going to be, you know,
So you don't think
Blaisdell,
they'll be using Ethereum or Bitcoin? They'll be using their own intranet of blockchain, their own versions of these.
it'll be interoperability. So I see, and for example, ETC as from what I understand, as interoperability with Hyperledger,
Yeah.
right? So what you can have is just like CoinFirm, we did what we think is, well, from what we can tell, the largest kind of true blockchain implementation of banking. It's our secondary solution called True Datum. It's pretty much kind of a data provenance, origin of data or documents sort of solution. We implemented it into the largest bank here in Central Europe, PKO BP. Um, and sorry, I'm trying to get back to the interoperability part. Um, so what you're going to see around that is in certain use cases we were able to use Dash's blockchain and we're able to use a private sort of thing. So in the applications where you want to keep it public or it's capable technologically or it's more, let's say, efficient, effective, right? Costs are lower, et cetera, et cetera. Then you do it like this, and for certain other applications you do that, but you can transfer these assets or these whatever you want to call them in between, right? So that's why we've been also really successful. And even though Chainalysis or Elliptic have received much 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 more money than we have, we've been really competitive, and one of them is because we approached everything from blockchain agnosticism, so the technical capability to quickly integrate different protocols and blockchains. And that's why we did the thing with Ripple's XRP thing. uh, whether it's Dash, whether it's Neo, we were able to do all that.
Well, with these services, it's really important to be chain agnostic. You don't want to you don't want to have a biased stake in the game in either way. That's and as far as it goes, even as a corporate level, you don't want to have that stake even personally. So I can respect that. Dude, damn, bro, we've been talking for over an hour. I just realized we got to wrap things up. This was a great convo. Do you have any questions, topics, or anything that you wanted to mention before we go?
Listen, we can follow up on it. There's obviously a few topics we opened up, even this last one, which is that private public debate, and obviously
I could go into that forever. That's why I was like, I don't know, we should wrap things up.
I obviously view it as interoperable. So, listen, man, thank you once again for having me. Once again, for anybody who's in the crypto space, is a crypto company who's looking into, actually operating in the legitimate space, feel free to hit us up. You've been a victim of any sort of major thing, go to reclaimcrypto.com. If you want to submit data, get rewarded for submitting data, go to amlt.coinfirm.com. Man, thanks. Appreciate it once again. Happy to do it anytime.
See, and I see Doug in the chat. He's like, we have private side chains or second layers for Bitcoin secure chain. See, we could go into that forever, bro. I'm gonna have to get Grant back on the podcast.
RSK for a long time. RSK are friends and clients for a long time.
Yeah, Rootstock's the shit, man. I got to hang out with their team in Hong Kong. Shout out to Rootstock.
Yeah, Diego and Gabe and all those guys. So yeah, those projects are there. It's just we have to see everything come together.
Yeah, and the more options we have, the more on-ramps we have, the more chance we have of mass adoption. If we start to monopolize these ramps and there's only one fucking highway to take with 50 toll bridges, mass adoption is going to be stifled for a lot longer than it should be. Again, guys, thank you so much for tuning into the live stream. Clint Westwood in the chat. Shout out to Paulie. I see you, Paulie P. Unbanked in the chat. Doug, Amina, everybody, thank you all for tuning in. Club 80, thank you. Much appreciated. Thanks, Leela, I believe it was, for the new subscription. And check out coinfirm.com, guys. And the conversation's in your hands now. So drop some comments in the comment section below, and I'll meet you guys there, and we can open the conversation to you. Grant, enjoy your day, bro. Shout out to everybody in Poland from the team and coinfirm.com.
Doors always open to visit your roots, so you let me know.
Yeah, I got to get over to Poland eventually, bro. Ireland and Poland I still have yet to visit, and they're two big boxes I got to check off, so I'll see you eventually.
Get to it. Don't sit too much.
Let me know when there's a big conference in Poland, a Bitcoin or blockchain conference, and I'll stop by.
There's a bunch, man. Just stay in touch, and I can even hook you up, maybe get you some sort of, I don't know, shine around it, promo around it. We'll see.
Respect, bro. All right, guys. Everybody have a day. We're out.
Thank you.
Shout out to the sponsors of the podcast, monarchtoken.io, the complete crypto solution. Monarch Wallet is now available for Android, iOS, and desktop devices today. Do you want to learn how to mine crypto? Well, all you have to do is visit cryptomining.tools for profitable crypto mining information today. The Divi Project, that is diviproject.org, your one-click solution for staking and masternodes. Earn cryptocurrency using social media platforms like SOME.social, SOMEE.social, New Era Social Media. Get paid to write reviews, like reviews, comment on reviews. Visit bravocoin.com and get paid to review, available for Android and iOS devices, bravocoin.com. Shout out